Okay, I'm just gonna say this because we can cut this out, but I realized my
Uh,
Zoom has 10 minutes left.
yeah,
So, I mean, that will take us to
yeah,
4:40, 3:47, so we'll do it.
there we go. I see it too.
We're being our agile selves.
Yeah.
All right, so Erik, I'm so excited you're here. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm here with Erik Huberman, the CEO and founder of Hawke Media.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to hear first and foremost about your origin story. So not only about Hawke, but more about you and what kind of wonderful human you are.
Appreciate that assumption. Um, yeah, I born in LA, grew up in Ojai, California, come from a very entrepreneurial lineage. Like my grandfather owned a junkyard, scrap metal yard that he built after immigrating to the US to LA. My dad worked for him and then went into the waste business and in real estate and all sorts of things. So grew up basically assuming that becoming an entrepreneur is kind of what you do. And so like I started my first little wheel and deal business at 8 years old. I was buying and selling Beanie Babies. Actually, you could say the lemonade stand at 6 years old was the first business, but like I actually made good money on Beanie Babies and ended up like buying myself a guitar and a bicycle and a save for a car and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, always liked starting businesses, and then went through school, college, went into real estate when I got out of college exactly 1 week to the day before the entire banking industry collapsed. So I made like $350 that year, and then started looking. I always liked the internet. I was a video game nerd growing up and competitive gamer. And when it wasn't a thing you were allowed to talk about because like it was a bad thing, now it's like you're a millionaire. Back then it was like you're in your hole in your closet and you don't tell anyone that you actually play video games. But so yeah. So anyways, I always liked working with computers. So I started my online e-commerce company helping musicians figure out how to basically make money, the business side of music, and brought in a ton of partners, et cetera, built that business, and then consecutively built and sold 2 fashion subscription brands after that, and really was one of the first movers in e-commerce subscription. And so after all that, started advising and consulting, realized that there was a massive hole in the market for actually getting access to great marketing help, and tried to make a business where that is the mission. It's accessibility meets great marketing, where you can actually, it's easy to work with us. We're flexible, nimble, inexpensive when we need to be, but we're also really good at what we do. So.
Okay, the image that came to your head, because I have a very alive fantasy mind, is I imagined you going to a car dealership with a huge armful of Beanie Babies and being like, can I buy a car?
This one's worth $400.
Right.
Totally.
So how did that actually work?
I sold them, then took the money and bought a car. Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Were you kind of, because you were very entrepreneurial from an early age, where you're like, okay, if I sell X amount of Beanie Babies, I can get this type of car?
It was actually about the guitar. I just blew way past my goal. So frankly, what it started with, I don't know, can I swear on this? Because it's a quote.
Of course, yeah.
Perfect. So I was 8. I wanted an electric guitar because the only other Erik I really knew of was Eric Clapton, great guitarist. So I thought, well, I'm Erik too, so I need to play guitar. That's going to be my dream. So I went to my dad and said, I want an electric guitar. And my dad looked at me and said, good, get a fucking job. I went, okay, I will. And so that's where, and I had bought, like I had gotten a couple Beanie Babies as gifts. And then frankly, I had an allowance of $5 a week from my parents. And a Beanie Baby at the time, I'll never forget the price, was $5.34 with tax. It's $4.95 plus tax, and tax was, I guess, 7.5% in Ojai, California, and Ventura County. So it's $5.34. So I had to come up with 34 cents a week somewhere else, which even as an 8-year-old, you can get a hold of 34 cents. And I would buy basically one a week that I thought was going to be popular. And then once I had a few of them, I went to a trade show for them that was in my in Ventura, which is near Ojai. Went with a friend, and one of the first ones that I had bought, someone on the spot, it was like unraveling because I didn't know they were valuable at the time I bought that one. I was like play hacky sack with it. And someone points at it and goes, I'll give you $450 cash for that right now. And I was 8. I was like, yeah, done. And they had one for sale that was new and pristine for like $1,100. And mine was unraveling. So I was like, done. I get it. Like I even understood it at 8. And so they took it. I called my dad and told him, and he said, great, I have a Brinks truck on the way, meaning like an armored vehicle, like $450. Okay, we're sending the armored truck. Fun little jab. But so yeah, so I did that. And then I went, well, there's something here. Like these people are crazy. I'll keep finding good ones and selling them. So that was the biggest deal I did, but I sold a bunch of them for $60, $120, $150. And these are ones I bought all of them for $5. Mm-hmm. So I just started trading. And then my mom still tells the story today. At one point I said, I need to get rid of these. And my parents taught me, like, you need to liquidate. I'm like, exactly. So I was like, I'm liquidating. So I had, at the peak, I think I had 80 of them. And a lot of people ended up stuck with them after the craze ended. I had like 5 left that I kept kind of intentionally. Yeah. Got rid of all of it. Made, I think at the end of the day, I ended up making like $4,000 or $5,000 as an 8-year-old. Yeah. And it was super fun. And then, yeah, I bought the guitar, by the way, was $150. So blew past that goal. But I ended up buying a BMX because that's when BMX got popular amongst my friends. And then I had money, I put the rest in the savings account. And at 16, bought a pickup truck.
That's great. That's such a great story. Yeah. Thank you for expanding on that, because you told me so much more, like beyond what my fantasy actually was.
Yeah, that one event, like I still remember that trade show, which is funny because like the amount of memories you carry at 33 from 8 years old, but like I still like remember the like how the booths were set up. And I was the 8-year-old little kid, and everybody else were like women in their 60s that were collecting this, just to not to stereotype, but that was the crowd. So it was like I was this funny little boy. And the same thing with where I'd buy the Beanie Babies from in retail was this like British tea shop that sold them in Ojai, that like it was a bunch of older ladies that I'd come in once a week and pick one, and I got to be friends with them all.
Yeah, that's how you started networking in the Beanie Babies community. So tell me, I like that we're starting on this very kind of like fun, silly, but informative tangent. So what do you find beautiful about being an entrepreneur?
The freedom. Honestly, like I like that my destiny is in my hands. Like I think most people's are. I think it's just very apparent when you're an entrepreneur. Like I don't get to blame anyone else for anything, which comes with the stressors and everything else, but it also comes with freedom. Like if I want to take a vacation, I'm only hurting myself generally. Like it's like if I want to take a break, great, I can take a break. I might make less money, and that's a conscious decision I get to make. Like I get to choose my trade-offs. Mm-hmm. And that means when I really want to work hard, I also benefit from that. And like there's that balance of everything. There's a very direct feedback cycle when you're an entrepreneur. And I've always loved that. I've hated the idea of my success dictated by someone else's opinion of me, which is the fact of life. That opinion can be driven by logic. That opinion can be driven by metrics, but still it's someone else's feelings or opinions of me. And I'd much rather my success be driven by my success.
Mm-hmm. And so because you are accountable solely to yourself, so to say, as we are entrepreneurs, what type of things or what type of standard do you hold yourself to that then you measure and say, okay, I'm going to do this and this is going to be the outcome, or I can take a vacation and I'm okay doing this? Like, what are your standards?
Be better than myself before. I'm not competitive with other people unless I'm just having fun. Like I'll be jokingly competitive with other people, but the truth is what drives me isn't beating someone else, it's beating myself. What kills me isn't that my competitor did better than me last year or something. It's that I didn't do better than you, which hasn't happened, thankfully. Every year we've grown, but that's what hurts, is like if I don't hit the goals I set for myself and I don't feel like I'm growing at the pace I expect for myself. So, breaks, part of taking a break, taking a vacation comes with building the right structure in a business. If you have to be there every second of every day, there's nothing scalable about that. So you'll never grow. Like, and again, growth is like, I'm very growth minded. I want to build something massive. And so I'm very aware that like, I have to basically be obsolete in my own business for the most part, other than additive and strategic, sure. But if I can't go away for a week or two, like this will never grow. So vacation becomes very doable. And like, you can only make so many changes and make so many big strategic moves without letting them play out and let people catch up. So a lot of times my time spent doing things like this and going on podcasts and meeting people and expanding my network, taking a break from that for a week at this point, and it's honestly never been a big deal, because another kind of mindset I've had with all this with my business partner was, we may be doing this for a very long time, so we got to treat this like a marathon, not a sprint. So if I need a break, I take a break. If I want to go have fun and do something, I do it. If I want to take half a day and go, mountain bike or something, I have a broken leg right now, but in general, do something active.
Yeah.
whole nother story. I've been very active during COVID and I've been social distancing, but in terms of getting into nature and doing a bunch of crazy stuff, I've been having fun with that. So I've actually had a pretty good balance because I believe it's important because the idea here isn't like, I'm going to build this and in 3 years, I'm going to flip it. Like, that's not what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You said a couple of things that are really interesting to me are mental fortitude. Well, I'm reframing what you said, and also growth mindset. How did you learn about mental fortitude and how did you practice that? Because I think it's extremely important in entrepreneurship and it's not that easy to learn, actually.
Yeah, I think it's more acceptance than fortitude. It's more just like, in my partner and I, so the first lesson of this, I have to give credit to my dad where credit's due, even though we get along great, but we also have a very oldest son.
Erik's dad.
Yeah, exactly. We have an oldest son, dad kind of, or I guess oldest period, dad kind of conflict as well. But at the same time, I like a month into this business, I called him because one of my 5 employees had taken off, and it's a very long story, but basically like dropped the ball for me and half my clients were angry and everything felt like it was burning. And so there was a long story in here with the guy met a girl over the weekend, decided to go to Hawaii and get married, flaked on everything. Like, it was a crazy story. I spent like 5 full minutes telling my dad the details of the story, getting out of work. And his response is, oh yeah, that shit happens all the time. I got to run. Talk to you later. Quick. I'm like, what do you mean that guys met this girl over the weekend, flew to Hawaii? Like, that doesn't happen all the time. And it took, frankly, I think about a year to really start to settle into, I get it. What happens all the time is, as the owner of a business, there's always a fire. Always. Like, that's your job as the owner of a business. And the fire could be that you're not growing fast. Like, it might not be that your business is actually at jeopardy of failing, but you're not hitting your goals. Someone's quitting. Someone's suing you. Someone's this is happening. There's a pandemic. There's, tax problems, whatever. Broken leg. Thankfully, during this, that didn't stop me from handling work. But
Yeah.
yeah, in general, there's always something. And so that kind of mindset, again, I don't think it's fortitude, because fortitude is like building a wall around it. I think it's actually just acceptance. Like, just accept it, because then it doesn't surprise you. And happiness is expectations versus reality. If you expect it to be a shit show as a business owner, then when it is, it is. And you're like, yeah, let's solve the problem. Of course this is happening. Mm-hmm. Like, it just, and that mindset, like, especially, I've always been pretty calm about it, but I've gotten less and less freaked out about my business, because you just learn to accept that. That doesn't mean, I would say preparation also helps, and having scenarios to play against it. Because like, I was stressed out the weekend COVID hit. Like, I didn't know what that was going to mean for my business. Another longer conversation, but we didn't have scenarios played out of like what happens if. And now we have those scenarios and how to pivot against them. And so now it's like, it's just becomes picking the option. And like, yeah, if your expectations were you're going to, quadruple your business this year and it ended up you dropped 50%, that sucks. Get over it. It happens. Move on. Like, you just kind of have to accept that.
And I think that is essential to the growth mindset, is saying, okay, we didn't hit this. Now it's in the past. How are we going to move forward?
But I also, so to that point, growth mindset, I think there has to be sort of, and I know this, most founders are going to have to be the push. Like, my team will not grow my business as fast as I want them to. And I doubt they would even debate that, because I'm always the guy going, why is your goal this? It should be 2 times this. Why is this the goal? It should be, and I'm always pushing. And that is why we've been one of the fastest growing companies. That they've also risen to the occasion. Like, it's not like I did everything, right. But I have definitely pushed our team beyond what they would have done themselves. And I don't think they'd even debate that, because they pushed back on me. Like, we're not going to be able to hit that. I'm like, yes, we will. We're going to do this. What do I need to do that? Like, it's like, that is my role in a lot of ways. And in our business, other companies, those roles are different, but from my business, I'm the one that definitely pushes growth.
I like that a lot, because I think as leaders, and entrepreneurs, we do have to encourage and push our team to think and dream even bigger than they think they can.
Yep.
Sometimes, and then we have to do that for ourselves too. So how do you practice that for yourself and also accept it when you don't need it?
Yeah, I basically have long-term vision, medium-term vision, short-term vision, in that order. Meaning, like, I know that I want to build a multinational conglomerate, massive business. I look at Accenture and Ernst & Young and Deloitte as what I'm trying to build.
Hell yeah.
Okay, but there's a step before that, and quite a few. What's more of a 3, 4-year goal. And then I set that up and then I go, okay, now what are the steps to get to that? And it's setting it up. When I first started the business, we set our 4-year goals and we came within 1% of every goal. So it was exactly basically right on target. Like the nuance is literally cash flow. Like it's not, we weren't far off at all. We hit them. And so we also hit exactly them. We didn't blow past them because you end up setting your business up to do that. Now you have to be careful. Like don't just start spending money when you're not seeing the growth and assume that it's coming, but you do manage. Like what I noticed because of those goals is if I didn't have that goal, let's say like the year I wanted to go from 5 to 10 million in revenue. If the goal wasn't 10 million and we were on track to hit 7, I might have been like, if I didn't have a 10 million goal, like growing 40% is great. And we would have hit 7. But what happened is if we were on track to hit 7 and we're not, and 10 is my goal, I start freaking out and hiring people and finding ways and doubling down on marketing and figuring out ways to grow and looking for opportunities. And so those goals drive different behavior because you don't just accept like, this is a great rate, which is where now at this size, I have to work with a lot of our executives on our team to be like, I get that you think 20% is great, but I want 80% and we have to get aligned on this. And that's kind of where we're at now, is getting that more aligned with a massive team versus just me driving it.
And when you hit those goals, how do you celebrate and support the team and yourself?
High five, next year's goals, yes. No, I'm actually pretty terrible about that. We do every year. We'll see what happens this coming year, but every year up until now, we've taken the whole team on a trip on our birthday every year, assuming we hit our goals. And frankly, we did it anyways when we didn't. But we mostly have done a cruise to Mexico. The one year we did a trip to Vegas. One year we did a snowboard trip. So yeah, that's been a good way to celebrate. We have done better and better about celebrating intermediate wins. We talk about wins on a weekly basis and things like that, but we've been more careful about the overall like dollar goal that the company has, just because that's a great scoreboard for me, but sometimes it comes off internally as if all we care about is money, even though to me it's a scoreboard. It has nothing to do with the profit, like what I'm making. It's just, that's a good metric to show we're growing. But we've started to look at other ways to show individual wins and individual OKRs that they need to achieve that feed into that, but it's more about what we're asking them to do, because an individual at a 200-person company doesn't necessarily, like, they don't know the direct effect on that, not those numbers, but they know what they can control, and that's what we manage to, and then celebrate when they do their individual things. So we do quarterly reviews and that kind of thing as well. And we do a Hawke Star of the month, and we celebrate every department has their employee of the month, and then we have an overall like company, we call them the Hawke Star every month.
What is that? I like that.
Honestly, I hate the term, but it's like the employee of the month. It's the person that's really exemplifying our core values on that month, and it's voted by our team, and it's really who everybody feels is, the best participant of the month. And then we also have sort of an executive picked, we call them the big bird of the month, that from top down, we've seen someone that's really rising to the occasion and, stepping above their class, so to speak.
What I like about that is people get to see the behaviors that someone's exhibiting to get that reward, right? So is that person helping other team members? Is that person crushing their goal and helping team members? Like, what is it actually the person is doing so that the other team members have an example of how to move up, or how to get this reward, or how to get Hawke or Big Bird of the Month? Because without that, I think sometimes people can feel uncelebrated.
Yeah.
And as a founder, I know people will never be as invested as we are because it's our company, but how do we keep people motivated enough that when they come to work, they're not like, oh, I'm just checking the clock, like this is 9 to 5. How do you keep them engaged? How did you come up with that?
I think that just people like recognition. That wasn't that hard. That was something, it came up from my team. That wasn't like, I don't dictate everything. That came from someone on the team. They're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it. So that wasn't that complicated. That's a very thing that a lot of companies do. When we're in person, a lot of that's really easy, frankly. Like, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of people hanging out, meeting each other, talking to each other, walking over and high-fiving each other. Remote, that's a lot harder, and that's something we're all constantly working on. Like, one thing we've implemented is everybody gets paired up with a random other person once a week for half an hour just to hang out and meet each other, because like that nuanced relationship building is super important. Every team meets every morning at 9 a.m. together to go over what's going on, et cetera. Like, there's a lot we're trying to do to build out that culture, because it's a lot harder remote. And it does feel more transactional in terms of the employee-employer relationship when you're not coming in and hanging out and spending time after hours or in between meetings, and that has gone away. And so that's what we're trying to figure out now, is how do we bring that nuance back, even if we don't go back to work for a year? And we're giving up our office. We're trying to get out of it so that we can figure out a new strategy going forward when things change. Because for now, we're remote, and we're remote for a while.
Yeah, and how did that shift? Because no one expected that, the shift from working in the office to going remote affect your own wellness and sanity?
Fine. Personally, I'm just used to, controlling my own destiny. So I take care of myself. Like I complimented not being able to hang out with people with doing a bunch of working out 2 hours a day and going out and, learning how to mountain bike again and buying a mountain bike. And we did a trip, how I broke my leg was a trip to Zion National Park. We did another trip to Big Bear, and, we went to Mexico for a week as well. And just have done things that keep me sane. And then even day in, day out, I found myself I was on Zoom every half hour for 12 hours a day. And I was like, okay, I got to change this. So it started taking less on Zoom, I did a block twice a week. I blocked out an hour and a half on Tuesdays and Thursdays and ended up writing a book that I've been wanting to do for a while. So because normally I'd get breaks throughout the day, or there'd be someone would cancel or something, but with Zoom, everyone's like ding, ding, ding. So there was no relief. And so I decided to just create it for myself. And now we have a book that we're going to be putting out as a company, which is going to be super valuable for us as well. So that was, again, I like being productive. I really like what I do. So that was very direct, but I don't like sitting around, and I am a social person. But I have also learned that being on Zoom and connecting with people on the phone, frankly, almost scratches that itch. It's nice to be in person, but I'm not dying for that personal connection. I'm also living with my wife. I think if you live alone, it's a lot more difficult, but I've got a roommate, so.
Well, you also sound like you're able to be agile too mentally when things change. You were talking about being agile with your company goals. And then as COVID hit and you're thinking about now, what do we do with the business? You're agile there. And then you're like, okay, shit, now I'm home. So how do I change up my schedule? Okay, I'm going to work out more. I'm going to write this book.
What's also, I like to get as most out of life as I can. That is just by nature. I don't like sitting still. I don't like wasting time. And so I looked at it as okay, I try to look at everything as an opportunity. So I'm like, okay, I'm not on the road half the time, because I've been up until March, I was on the road half the time. I was on an airplane every week. And so I'm like, well, I just canceled. I think I have $20,000 in Delta credits right now because of how many flights I'd booked that I had to cancel. And I'm like, all right, well, now I'm stuck. So what have I not been doing that now that I'm here for a while, I was doing? One was staying consistent with working out and getting in shape, which I had already started sort of another stint of I started meal prepping and stuff right before this. So it was it wasn't I kicked off right after COVID. I'd already started that practice. So it was let's just keep this going. And I'd also just gotten this Apple Watch. So I set it to 900 calories a day and was I'm going to hit it every day. Mm-hmm. And did it till the day I broke my leg, and even hit it that day. But because I was hiking is why. Yeah. So anyways, what do you call it? I started jonesing to get outdoors. And so I was like, what can I do? We do all the marketing for Diamondback and their portfolio of bike brands. So called the CEO and said, can you hook me up with a deal on a bike? And he said, sure. And bought a bike, and a few friends bought them with me. And so that was I think a month into it. We were had quarantine for a month. We're hey, we're still going to be outside and kind of distance, but why don't we go biking together? And so I started biking with a couple of core friends, and and then, I had a couple hobbies that were allowed to be done during this, and focused on work. Work was crazy the first month and a half anyway. So I was working 15-hour days every day to keep up with the changes happening during that. And then once that calmed down, then it got into, okay, well, kind of used to this now. I'm working out every day. I'm mountain biking. We've got weekend warrior trips planned, and it's kind of fun. And got really into trying all the different restaurants around LA, but delivery, because I wanted to support local restaurants, AKA splurge on a bunch of really good food. So
yeah,
that was good.
And what so I think a lot of people want to start a new fitness program or meal prepping. How did you, were you an athlete? Did you get into fitness later on in life?
I've always been, I've been in the gym since I was 15, just as a normal human being. I was never an athlete. Mm-hmm. But it was always not top of mind, but always a part of my routine some way. So I've always been in okay shape. It's fluctuated at times when I've kind of gotten off the wagon, but no, I mean, with me, with anything, it's just like, for me, it's about committing. And then as long as I'm doing it, I do it. It's kind of binary for me. Like if I can commit and say, this is what I'm doing, I'm good about it. It's the same thing. Like I haven't had a drink since COVID. Not because I was like overdoing it. I just kind of got over drinking, and what I know about myself is if I say I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. If I say I'll do it now and then, but then I start doing it more and more and more. And so I kind of have to cold turkey things when I want to cut them out of my life. Or be very specific about it with myself. I've just learned that about kind of self-management. So, being purposeful about the things I want, I've been part of that.
Mm-hmm. And what about with healthy eating? We obviously are both in Los Angeles, and that's top of mind for a lot of people, but how did you get into meal prepping? And
so to be specific, I actually don't do my own meal prep. So I found one of my employees was doing it for a bunch of other employees and said, hey, you want it too? I was like, yep. So he drops off my lunch and dinner and I intermittent fast. So basically Monday through Thursday, I do meal prep. And then Friday through Sunday, I've been kind of like, I still eat pretty clean, but I'll, have a couple cheat meals or whatever. I'm not overdoing it. I'm not trying to get shredded, but I'm just, during the week, I don't really care. Like I'll eat whatever is in front of me. So if someone's already prepped it and all I have to do is open the Tupperware and heat it up, that makes it way easy on me. And so I started that during my wedding diet phase. We were trying to save for the wedding and get in shape. And I found a really solid chef that for a few months did it. And I got in crazy shape. And then he decided to go work on his tech startup and didn't want to cook anymore. But then I found out my employee did it. So that was right before COVID. So about a year I got off it and then got back on it with him.
Yeah, I find I really enjoy cooking. So it's one of the things that helps me stay sane as a founder. And I like to schedule my calendar. Like I'll schedule my workout time, I'll schedule my yoga time. I'll schedule dinner. I haven't been doing that in the last couple of weeks because it's been more consistent, like the same time every night.
Yep.
But I turn on music or I'll watch a podcast while I'm cooking or listen to a podcast while I'm cooking. And I spend time there. And when I'm there, I'm really focused on what I'm making.
Yep.
That gives my brain a really nice time to relax.
Yep.
I also do some intermittent fasting too. So I know when I sit down and I'm ready to eat, I better be present because this is like the time that I'm eating.
No, for me, that's working out. That is exercise. And when I say exercise, I mean, I was even doing from 9 to 10 every day. We have internal meetings with our sales team and our marketing team just to get everyone on track every day. And I run both a lot of the time. And for that hour, I walk to the beach and back in Santa Monica just while I'm talking. Gets me away from the computer. I shouldn't be in front of my computer because I'm also kind of ADD. So I'll start answering emails while people are trying to talk to me.
Yeah.
And so I get away from everything, go out and walk up until, again, 5 weeks ago when I broke something, but 2 weeks more and I'm out of that. And now I've actually, in the past couple of weeks, traded it I have one of those knee scooters for my broken leg. And I've been knee scootering the same trail, which I get so many looks and laughs because I basically look like a crazy guy on a knee scooter and I'm talking to myself because I have a headphone in.
Yeah.
And so many, literally today, this guy was just staring at me while I went by him on the phone. And I'm talking to my team, but I'm looking at him because he's staring at me. So it looks like I'm just talking to myself, staring at him. It was a good little scene. But yeah, that, and then again, almost every night, going on a run, or I built a little gym in my townhouse. So we have a weight set and stuff that I can get in there. And that same thing, it gives me time to just focus on that.
Okay, I'm just going to say this because we can cut this out, but I realized my Zoom has 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
So, that will take us to 3:47, so we'll do it.
There we go. I see it too.
We're being our agile selves. Okay, so I do want to ask you, sorry, go ahead. What?
No, you're good. You're good.
What do you find, we talked about what you find beautiful. What do you find ugly or hard about being an entrepreneur, a founder?
Yeah, I think these days, success is almost villainized. And I think it's kind of a shame. Don't get me wrong. I think, and this is going to get a little political, but I think it's okay. I think that there's a lot to be done in sort of social reform and financial reform because the disparity of wealth is a problem. But I think slogans that are going around like "eat the rich" is ridiculous because a lot of the people that have had success have not just worked hard because working hard is kind of a level set, but have really created a lot for our society, have created businesses Like, I love to see the hundreds of thousands of people that work at Amazon complain that Jeff Bezos is rich. It's like, yeah, he can go away. He can close shop. That would suck. And it's just, to me, there's a balance there that isn't being met. And like anything else, causes swing the other way. But I think small business owners especially are having a lot of issues right now. You see, the protests, which are one thing, and those are, I total backer of BLM. I think it's important. But the riots and the looting that are just hurting these small businesses, and then they're getting like the statements that are coming out like they have insurance anyways. Like, these people don't have a lot of leeway. Like, these people, COVID did enough to them. And so I think it's a shame that that as a society, the villainization of entrepreneurship is happening as much as the sex appeal is. And I think both are a problem. I think the attitude that, like, almost the statement of I'm an entrepreneur, like, nobody that's really an entrepreneur would say that, because instead you say, I run this business, or I built this. Like, the idea of like that being a vocation, it's not. Entrepreneurship is not a vocation. Running a business, and whatever that business is, like, when people ask me, I'm an entrepreneur, I own a marketing company. Like, that's what I do. So it's, I think that the sort of, and that started around, I saw like 2012 with like the Social Network movie, like started this craze of everyone's got a startup and everyone's an entrepreneur, and everybody, with an Instagram following says they're an entrepreneur. But so a lot of that, like, buy my course and that stuff, I'm just not really a fan of. And again, the villainization that has kind of swung the other way, where it's like people that have employees are now bad people because if you make a margin on an employee, you're a bad person, is a tone that I've started to hear, meaning like, if I pay an employee X, but the company makes more, you're a bad person. By the way, no business could survive if that wasn't the case. That's how business works. So it's, yeah, that part, I think, depending on what it's, how far that keeps going, I'm watching that, because I think it's sad, because like, I'm fine personally. It's not a personal thing. I just feel for, frankly, more struggling business owners that are giving it their all to, frankly, maybe make as much as a normal salary would pay them, but they're creating jobs for 20 people, but now they're the enemy because they're the boss and they're the business owner.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we're in such a strange time where it's easy to be a villain. It's easy for people to villainize other people, and people are lacking a lot of empathy. And I'm making a gross generalization on purpose.
Yep.
There are a lot of people doing that.
It's the vocal minority, but the vocal minority's gotten very vocal. And so it's, yeah, I mean, I even saw with our own team where, I've been on the board of 3 nonprofits that are about bridging the opportunity gap for inner city kids to get education and get more opportunity in entrepreneurship and in business. We've donated every year to all of them. We've done it. One's called Orphan Starfish, one's called Build.org, one's called Nifty. We've been doing this since we started the company. We've always been charitable, and our employees, not knowing some of that, would are like, well, what have we done to make a difference? And it's like, we get that this got trendy 2 months ago, but we've been doing this for 7 years. And it's like, we all of a sudden they were calling out their own company saying, we don't do anything. I'm like, we actually have volunteer programs across the company. You haven't volunteered, so don't point the finger. And that, again, minority, we have mostly good people, but we had already been working on launching our own nonprofit that we're going to be announcing in a month as well. So there's a lot that, like, people want to like accuse and witch hunt before they, as you said, there's no empathy. There's no like questions asked. It's all accusations and finger pointing. And it's not just entrepreneurs. It's falling on a lot of people, but I think it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know with our limited time here, sorry about that.
Yep.
I want to ask actually the most important question to me is, how often do you think of death and mortality, and does it actually impact your day-to-day or your vision for yourself or your business?
It pops in now and then, but I'm pretty quick to let it pass. I've just kind of accepted it and do my best to accept it. But I don't know that the only thing it drives is like the idea, as I said, I want to get the most out of life. So I don't really let anything, like, I don't have the things along the lines of like, we'll get to that in the next 20 years. Like, I remember end of 2016, I told my wife, like, 2017 is my bucket list year. I'm going to do all the things I've had on the list. And we did a lot of it. And like, we have like, now when we talk about like the things we want to do, like, it's a short list, because when things pop up and we want to try something, we just go do it. And like, we're both pretty similar that way. So like, I can tell you our list right now is, we want to go hike with the gorillas, which we were supposed to do until COVID hit. We had booked, done, and then now COVID. So we're probably going to do that next year. We, at some point, what was the other thing? She wants to go to Bhutan, which I'm sure we'll do at some point. snowboard in Japan. I'm a big snowboarder.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, in terms of like activities, things we want to do, like that's the list right now. There's probably, life experiences. We want kids, things like that. But like, I'm not like waiting and leaving things to maybe when I'm 60, I'll do that. I try to do everything as I want to do it. And it's nice because I like, even again, when we're shut down for 6 months, there's a couple things I'd rather be doing. But at the same time, I'm like, I had a lot of fun before we got shut down. So like taking a breather and hanging out, not the worst in the world.
I agree. I don't think slowing down is necessarily a negative thing. Sometimes you think, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to be bored. I'm like, but also being bored is really good for your mental wellness sometimes, like taking a walk and not being on the phone.
I don't know, like if I wouldn't say boredom is, I think intentional relaxation is like, and that's how I look at it. Like if I'm bored, I'm either going to take a nap or like or rest, even watch a mindless movie, but like to give my brain a break, I'll do something like that. Mm-hmm. Or I'm going to go do something. Like I hate the idea of like, as I said, wasting time. I can intentionally not do anything or intentionally go do something. But the idea of just time going by and not getting a benefit of it in some way, which includes reprieve, I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And boring probably wasn't the best word.
It's semantics, but yeah.
Totally. Sometimes my friends say, oh, like, what did you do this weekend? I said, well, I read a book, I went to the beach, and I went on a walk. And because on Sundays, I try not to work unless I catch an idea so I can have mental space to catch ideas and not be bombarded by a very scheduled calendar.
Yep. No, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I try not to schedule things on the weekends, and then I do end up doing some work, but it's usually like when I have some downtime, and I'm like, I watched a movie, I went on a run, I did whatever I wanted to do. It looks like we're about to get kicked out, but yeah.
Well, Erik, tell people how they can find you and also tell them about the e-commerce week that's coming up.
Yeah, so find me is easy. It's just at or / Erik Huberman on any social media channel. It's just ErikHuberman. And then e-commerce week, we partnered with the city of LA. We announced it last year. This will be the first year. And of course, with COVID, we've decided to make it virtual, but we're expecting about 10,000 attendees, having some of the top brands in LA host different events that are experiences meet panels. So like, the Books talking about their supply chain and how they built this amazing direct-to-farm supply chain for their flowers, and then teaching you how to actually make a flower arrangement with their head of floral design. So like really cool experiences in your home. It's a whole week of things. Think like New York Fashion Week, but for LA and e-commerce, the best way to put it. So this is the inaugural. It'll be virtual. It's free, just ecommerceweek.la. And expecting it to be a good one. And it's really the springboard to then next year being a really big all over the city event.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Erik. It was wonderful to have you. I hope your foot heals fast. And thank you, wonderful humans, for joining us. Bye for now, and mahalo.
I also want to give a shout out to Startup Hut, who's working with Kilo to develop and produce this podcast. Startup Hut dedicates itself to democratizing access and eliminating geographical barriers to a diverse community of like-minded founders, mentors, and investors dedicated to building successful startups. They organize live stream virtual pitch events and are building an online community of entrepreneurs that can leverage a network of investors, mentors, and partners and access community perks and resources. If you're interested in pitching at one of their future pitch events or partnering with Startup, please contact George, George, at thestartuphut.com for more information. And you can find Kilo on your pocket computer or larger computer at www.kilo.app or on Insta at kilo.app. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.